And welcome to this week's podcast and videocast with Eagle Head football coach Beau Baldwin. It's brought to you by Cheney Federal Credit Union, serving their members' financial needs since 1951. What a ball game on Saturday. Win or lose, it just was a great college football game.
It was. I mean, and my hat's off to Montana State as well, their coaching staff, their players. I mean, it was a hard-fought game, and we knew it would be going over there. There were things that maybe surprised you in how the game went, and it was so back and forth and different highs and lows in it, but it doesn't surprise me that we were in a battle that's going to come down to a play here or there.
Vernon started off a little slowly, 2 out of 9 early on. Was that a little rust from the bye week?
I don't know if it was rust from the bye week. I've seen him come off bye weeks before and be fine. It's one of those deals. You're sometimes just missing. I think we've just come to expect such a level of perfection sometimes, and he's earned that all of a sudden, when things aren't, when he's not 8 for 9, what's wrong, what's going on? But it's just, it's sports, and it's the way, it's sometimes, whether you're a golfer, a shooter in basketball, or whatever it might be, sometimes you have to find ways to still make plays throughout a game, find ways to win, find ways to get things done, even when you're not necessarily playing with your A game. And at that moment, he wasn't, but at the same time, he was never rattled by it. He was never bothered by it, and he was able to keep responding. And, when it's all said and done, still able to find a way to get us into the end zone, I guess, 7 times as an offense.
I thought they were as hard to defend as anybody, maybe harder to defend than anybody you've had to play, because there were so many layers to that offense. They'd show a little veer option. They'd show the zone read, and all of a sudden Prukop would belly back and throw the ball when everybody's thinking he's going to run. Was that kind of the what you were seeing too, that they just had so many things going on?
I did. I thought they did a great job. I thought they had a great plan. I thought they executed it really well. I thought they had the right pieces too. Sometimes you can scheme all you want with an offense, but if you don't have the right pieces to make it work, it's going to be tough. To really still make it work. But starting with the QB and what he can do both with his legs and his arm, that's a great piece. Because then he's multidimensional and can provide a lot of threats. But along with that, I thought their running backs played as a compliment to. I knew they were good coming in. I thought they played even better once we were on the field and faced them live. And the receivers, were able to make plays and do some things downfield and get separation. And, so all in all, yeah, I give them a lot of credit, and it was a huge challenge for us. Similar to, certain things University of Washington had done offensively. And I know University of Washington might have a little more firepower at the receiver position in terms of speed, but I don't know if they executed, especially within their passing game, I know they didn't, like a Montana State did. So it was a challenge to defend.
It isn't very often you finish a ball game and you lose the turnover battle, you lose the penalty battle, and you lose the third down battle, and yet you still win the game. How were you able to do that?
Yeah, there are a number of things. The penalty battle, that's something that again, we have to, we've had some good moments this year, starting with Sam Houston, only 1 penalty, but we've also had some moments where we do have to clean some things up. And usually, not usually, but a lot of times when you go on the road, sometimes it can be tougher in an environment where you might incur a couple false starts and certain things that are going to be tougher. But there's definitely some things that we got to look in the mirror and put on ourselves, to say we have to. Certain penalties, a PI here or there, yeah, you're aggressive. A hold, you live with those, but when we're doing things and getting a 15-yarder and it's after the play's done or just, a mental deal, before the play even starts, or an offsides on kickoff cover, whatever it might be, those are things we do. We have to challenge ourselves. Those can get you, but yeah, so to do that, and then on top of that, you hit on the third down and the turnovers. The flip side, though, really is when you look at a turnover margin, you can say we lost it 3-2, but in a weird way, you can say we won it 4-3, because 2 4th down stops are exactly like a turnover. It's almost no different. So when you really look at the course of the game, and really a 3rd 4th down stop if you add the Hail Mary at the end. But within the course of the game, to me, it's almost as if we won the turnover battle 4-3, because our 2 4th downs we were able to execute and continue drives. So it's kind of a funny number that way, but I think that's part of it. What were our 4th down conversions? That's, if you want to ask how, that's how. What we did on 4th down, both offensively and defensively, ended up, in my opinion, being the key to the win.
Once again, you guys, you don't panic, and we've talked about this a number of times. You're down 44-30 with 2 minutes remaining third quarter, and you're still able to come back and get the defensive stops you need, but also get the touchdowns you need. And that was even with a fumble going in on their end, too. So you guys really, over the last 17 minutes, did a fantastic job of remaining composed and going on and doing what you needed to do to win.
Yeah, our guys just they buy into that. We buy into it as a staff, as a program, and I tell them, I'm not just going to guarantee you that you're automatically going to win every time you don't panic. Hey, we didn't panic at UW. Still doesn't mean we didn't win, but we gave ourselves the best chance. You're always going to give yourself an opportunity. So they just keep believing that, and there's no reason not to. I mean, the fear of failure or the attitude of being down about what's happened, that gives you no chance to have success going forward in anything, so we just keep not just talking about it, but you have to live it. In those moments, you have to continue living it and continue believing it to have the best chance. And when it's all said and done, yeah, you may not win every one of those ball games. UW's an example, Sam Houston in 12's an example, but it gives you the best opportunity so when you are in those moments you can. Because once you decide to panic and decide to point fingers and decide looking in the rearview mirror, you have no chance. So we just believe in, this is still going to give us the best chance in these tough moments, and it becomes a mental and a mindset, and I love that our guys have that.
Quincy Forte has won a lot of awards this week for his play. Last week, 190 yards on the ground, 4 touchdowns. Especially early on, he was the best player on the field, I thought.
No, I would agree. I mean, and I've said that, going into this game, at the tail end of last year, and even back at the tail end of 12 when him and Bronson were splitting time. I mean, you could just start to see him, and what he can do and the electricity he can bring to your team. Not just his talent, but just the electricity and the attitude and the mojo. I mean, he's the same guy running 75-yard touchdown, turning around, and he's covering that next kick. I mean, you think about that. You're talking about a starting running back, a guy that's got a chance for some All-American accolades, all this, that, and the other. He's most guys would, come off the field after an offensive drive or a huge, and hey, I need to put my sub in. He's right back on the field for a kickoff cover. So again, it's an attitude. It's just a mindset with him. He's a tough-minded kid. He's an incredibly talented player, and he became, along with, I thought, our O-line and our tight ends and our receivers collectively had their best ball game in terms of, especially on the road, to run for 7.2 yards a carry in a place where you don't have it's tough to get off snap count wise, and it was. A lot of it was silent count, and that's tough to do. And those guys all had a collective hand in that too, and Quincy'd be the first to point that out. So, yeah, he was a huge factor, but just the balance in general, that's why I talk about it a lot. I know different games are going to provide different types of balance. It's never, I shouldn't say never, but seldom is it just going to be 50-50. But throughout the course of a year, you need some balance in order to have a championship level type season.
Another guy who was an MVP in that was Jake Miller, because he had to come in, emergency place kicker. He did that in high school, but that's been a few years. And he came in, and he kicked 3 out of 3 PATs. He got a field goal for you, and if you don't get any of those things, you don't win the game in the end.
No question. Huge field goal. I mean, the PATs, every one of those PATs is huge, and then obviously a huge field goal because at the time, that would have been a huge momentum swing for them to hold us and keep it as a 10-point game, but instead we cut it to 7. So no, Jake's the perfect example of a guy who, the reason he was able to do that is all up here. He's not, he practices it, don't get me wrong, but you're only going to practice that so many times because in some ways I want him working on his craft, which is punting, and he's an emergency kicker. And you may go through your whole coaching career and need an emergency kicker once or twice ever. So you don't want to spend a ton of reps on something like that, but you spend enough that he's ready. But as much as anything, it's mental. No matter how many reps he takes during a week, it's not even his job, and hasn't been through his whole career here. And then all of a sudden he's thrown into that spot and he just, he's just very, matter of fact, and I'm just going to go in there and focus and I'll get it done. And he's very honest too. He goes, I'm going to have trouble maybe on these kickoffs placing them where you want, but I think I can bang it through. How about that? He's just very, he thinks through things, and he's never in a panic mode, and that's part of the reason he's been so successful, and it's part of the reason, it's a big part of the reason why he was able to do what he was able to do on Saturday.
What happens there with the kicking going forward? Is it a competition open up? Is it Jake? Is it McNanny? Is it who?
I would like to see Jake. Obviously, Jake's going to continue to get more reps than he had been in the past, but I'd love to see a guy like McNanny take this, because in a strange way, too, it sounds goofy to say, but sometimes, punting and kicking, you just don't see it too often. There's a reason. One can kind of mess with the other. It's like playing softball and golf. Guys sometimes say, I got to put down that cycle because I'm hitting a slice too much. There's something goofy with that where, sometimes, and if McNanny's got the talent to be able to do it, but I've got to see it in practice. Otherwise, who knows? We'll see. But I would like to see, in a perfect world, I'd love to see McNanny take that over, but he's got to go earn it. It's something where we'll take a look at both Jake and McNanny all week and see where we are, when we head down to UC Davis.
Davis on Saturday. This is a team that has a very good running back. He hasn't been healthy, but the bye week probably will help get him healthy. He had a few carries in their previous game, so I would think you'll see Manzanares and get a full dose of him on Saturday. What are your initial thoughts about Davis?
Yeah, I think we're going to get a full dose of him. I do, and we didn't play him last year, but we always saw a lot of crossover film, and I was always impressed with him as a running back, and just with their style. They're very old school in terms of their style on offense, very disciplined with it, very physical with it. Coach Gold's done a great job instilling it, and they understand who they are. It's like Stanford that way, or Alabama that way, or whoever. You can look at those type of teams. They understand exactly who they are, and they believe in it, and it shows up. It shows up on film. There's no question about that offensively and with what they do there. And then jumping ahead defensively, I think they're going to be one of the best defenses we face all year. I do. Watching them play as a group, schematically what they do, the physicalness that they play with, you can tell they practice physical, with that style of offense that they face every day. So it builds that, with their defense too. So I've been impressed with the early in the week film I've gotten to see.
That's Eagle head coach Beau Baldwin in our podcast this week here on GoEagles.com, brought to you by Cheney Federal Credit Union.